time to dual wield. We can do better than that. That's more like it. Greetings audience, I'm Boomstick, and real quick before we get into the review, I have some important information. Happy Pride Month, guys. It's that time of year, and we're actually very excited for this Pride Month because we have lots of things for you guys, including special Pride merch. I've also got a special Pride sticker for my patrons of the $5 level or more this month, so definitely check that all down below in the description. Very excited. Happy Pride Month, and back to the review. Today we're going to be looking at the C39A Architens, the C30P Photon Longbow, the C32A Vanguard, which is a 3D printed flywheel blaster with the metal flywheel, the world wheels, and Merlin motors. Obviously, talons, half darts. And there is a difference between this and the short bow, and I'll go into that later on in the review. All three of these blasters can only be purchased from Cobalt Designs. There is no hardware kits, there's no files available. You must purchase them, as I did, pre-built from Cobalt Designs. If these blasters look familiar to you, well, there's a reason. The C39A Architens Mark II is based off of the DC-17 blaster pistol from Star Wars, used by Captain Rex the Clone Trooper. The C32A Vanguard is based off of the Smart Pistol from Titanfall, and the C30S, C30P, and C30A Photons, which all have a Star Trek phaser kind of feel, but are actually based on a blaster from Naomi Identities, which is the book written by Cobalt Designs, Brendan Bondock. I definitely recommend checking out their book and supporting a Nerf creator in the hobby. Now, I will say that the models I have here are pre-production models, so there are a few minor differences between what I have and what you would be getting if you were to order one for yourself. Mainly being that these blasters have seen the battlefield quite a few times. All three of these blasters utilize a two-stage trigger, meaning you half pull the blaster to rev. Obviously, they're very loud because they are Merlins, but when you want to fire, you do a full pull. So half pull for rev and then fire. Spin down on these does take a while because of the wheels and the motors that you're using, so keep that in mind. Now, obviously, you can single fire these if you want. And doing that will get you the max FPS. However, I do enjoy kind of unloading a whole mag rapid fire. The trigger on these blasters do keep up with rapid fires very well. I've been very pleased with my time with them on the field, which we'll get into later, but you can fire these rather fast and it'll keep up pretty well. All of these blasters feature a mag release on the back of the grip, meaning when you're ready to get rid of a mag, you can simply, just like that. The mag's gravity drop very well, and that is extremely useful when trying to reload two blasters at once. One of the minor differences between these blasters is blowback. Both the Photon and the Vanguard feature blowback, meaning that the trigger is going to be a little bit harder to pull for that bit of aesthetic coolness, as I'll call it. Meanwhile, the Architens features no such blowback because of what it's modeled after, so this actually has an extremely, extremely smooth trigger, and it's probably my favorite trigger pull of the three. However, I will say that the other two's blowback can be disengaged if you are so inclined. The Vanguard also features a little slide lock by pulling it back and sliding that up, and you can kind of see inside there, but it's more for aesthetics than function. Now let's talk about the differences between the photons. There are 3 different versions: the C30S short bow, the C30P long bow, which is the one I have, and the C30A Photon Classic Collector's Edition. Now the Photon short bow is a bit smaller than the longbow, as the names would imply. However, I prefer the longbow mostly because the black box on the bottom of it is actually what houses the battery, so you have a little bit more space than the Photon short bow, which can be a little bit finicky as far as getting it lined up, which is also a little bit of an issue with the Photon Classic as well, although I believe that has a little bit more space than the short bow. The Photon longbow also has this really nice sight on top, which I found that I really enjoy. The Photon Classic does include a collector's box along with the magnets for the kind of magnetic holster system that it utilizes. Not the same as the holster system, but kind of same idea. All of the pistols utilize a pin to hold in the battery tray, so all you have to do is remove that to get to the battery. The Photons is the most finicky and requires the most finagling to get it into place, but once you do, it works fine. The Vanguard has the most amount of space, so it's the easiest to get the battery in and out of, and it also has a nice little voltmeter in there for you. The Vanguard and the Architon both require a screwdriver or something long to poke the pin out of, but overall they're both pretty good battery trays. The Architon can be a little tricky, but as long as you get those wires where they need to be, it's just fine. Now, if we want to talk about comfort of these blasters, I will say all of them are a little chunky in the grip because they have to fit a Talon in the grip. So they are all slightly chunky in that area. However, in my opinion, they're nothing compared to, say, the Flypoint or the Venturi. Side note, keep an eye on the Venturi. Northeast Designs is working on a grip that takes the Nightingale mags, and I think you're really going to be happy with that smaller grip, so keep an eye on that. I'll make sure to have that linked. Now, if I had to rank all 3 of these as far as most comfortable to least comfortable, I'd probably have to say the Vanguard's the most comfortable, with the Photon being second most comfortable, and the Architons being the least comfortable. This one just has a bit more of a chunky grip, so if you really have the smaller hands, maybe not this one. However, I do find them all to be fairly comfortable, especially the Vanguard I've found to be very comfortable, so just keep that in mind. So since I don't have any printing or assembling information to give you guys or my experience with that, we're going to go straight into the gameplay part of this review. Now, I will say that I use these at 200 FPS games, so I was actually being outmatched as far as FPS goes when firing these. I haven't had a chance to take them to a 150 FPS game, although, depending on when this comes out, I should be at a game today running these then, and I am very, very optimistic for how they're going to perform there. So, without further ado, let's take these out into the field, shall we? The first thing I want to say is just how much fun these blasters are to dual wield. They thrive in CQB arenas or fields where you can run from cover to cover.
Gotcha.
They hit between 130 and 140 on a full battery with fresh darts, which is a bit low for 200 FPS games, and I could definitely feel that when trying to get some longer distance tags. While they suffer at range when going against 200 FPS blasters, if you're attending a 150 FPS game, they'll be very competitive. I was also able to hand off my Photon to my friend Lai, who found the Photon to be really smooth to fire. She found the grip a bit bulky, but said it performed really well for a pistol. These blasters would also do amazingly well for HVZ, but you'd have to get them with the polymer wheels instead of the brass wheels that I have, and that would get you down to around 110 FPS instead of the 130, 140 that I get with mine, which are too hot even for end war. Now, as you saw from the gameplay footage, they did perform very well. You'll most likely see me dual wielding them more often than not, and I'll probably be dual wielding the Architon and the Vanguard just because those two happen to be my most favorite. We'll see with time. All 3 of them have a lot to love. So overall, I find them extremely fun and competitive. This is my new ranking system for blasters, and I'm gonna go ahead and put all 3 of them in the same category judging them together, and they're going to go right there. So, yeah. So, I'll be using this in the future to kind of help people gauge where my opinions lie on specific blasters. So, yeah. I find these blasters to be very fun, and for the power that they're getting, I find them to be really competitive. Even if you're going against 200 FPS blasters, I'll even probably take these to APOC and run dual pistols for a bit and see how they do against 300 FPS. So keep an eye out for that video. The one con I would say is they're probably not very holsterable, especially the Architon, although that one does have a holster for it. However, I don't have the right hardware to put mine on a belt or molly, so still working on that. So, but there is technically a holster available for it. I will double check to see if that is available for sale as well, but I do have one in my possession. The Vanguard be a little bit problematic to holster just because of these pointy bits on the end, which would be a con in my opinion, just because something pointy on a blaster is potentially dangerous. I'm not really that worried about it, but it's something to keep in mind that some game runners might not be okay with something that pointy on a blaster. That'll be more of a case-by-case basis, I would assume. Now the Photon actually has these two neat little holes right here designed to go with something similar to the magnetic holster system kind of thing. It is a different system from what I understand, so you wouldn't be able to use this on your holster system, but there is a system I think made by Cobalt Designs, but I will double check that in text somewhere around me, to where you can mount this on your molly or belt or something of that nature. So this one would be the most holsterable in my opinion. So if you wanted something that you want to carry with you in a battle, the Photon might be the way to go, and I actually would recommend the longbow over the short bow version, but that's just my own personal preference. And of course, as always, links to everything that I've mentioned in this video will be found in the description below, and overall, yeah, I highly recommend these blasters, and these will not be leaving my loadout anytime soon. Thank you all for watching, and special thank you to all my lovely patrons out there. And if you'd like to support the channel or any of the hobbyists mentioned in this video, check out the links in the description below. Don't forget, patrons of the $5 level or higher get custom stickers from yours truly. But if you don't feel like supporting the channel in that way, you can also check out some of my merch where we have patches, shirts, hoodies, and more. Definitely leave me a comment letting me know what you think and what you'd like to see in the future. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to see what we're going to do next. Thank you again for watching. I've been Boomstick, and I'm out.